Okay, good evening, great students. I'm welcoming you back to this session again. I believe you enjoy your holiday and you're welcome back to the next session of your 100 level. I am your usual uncle for this lecture or this program for now on disaster and emergency in nursing. Disaster and emergency in nursing. Disaster and emergency in nursing. In the overview of the lecture, let us see what truly the definition according to WHO is. Describing disaster and emergency in nursing. WHO define it as a sudden occurrence of the events that causes damage, ecological destruction, loss of human life, deterioration of health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response from outside the affected community or area that requires immediate emergency intervention. If you had to look at the component of this definition, we now see that emergency and disaster, looking synonymous, are of great destruction. Where there's no disaster, mostly no emergency. For them to go in synonymous, we have seen from definition of WHO that it causes damage on human life, damage on property, and damage of many things. The quality said damage on ecological destruction. Ecological destruction simply means the environmental destruction. When there's war or there's disaster or there's destruction somewhere due to accidental, it leads to ecological destruction. Then loss of human life. A lot of people will die and a lot of people will be maimed in the course of that disaster and emergency. We have deterioration of health services. Deterioration of health services simply means in the course of disaster, a lot of health services will be destroyed, like hospitals, clinics, and primary health care or primary health center. In the course of destruction or due to disaster and emergency, there are a lot of destruction leading to destruction of mostly the property that are around, that are surrounding the area. Then it said on a large scale is sufficient warrant to extraordinary response, in which when there is disaster and emergency, there must be response to intervene on the destruction that is going on by inviting people that will come to rescue and take people out of the disaster area. When we look at disaster again, according to another definition, disaster can happen at any point in time and in point in place. There are other factors that are usually enforcing or enhancing disaster and emergency, such as human and financial consequences. In human, it destroys a lot of human, and when human are destroyed in the course of a disaster, you see that it leads to even brain. That many people that are intelligent, people that are sufficient, people that are well-to-do are gone due to disaster. And lead to financial consequences. There will be no money again in circulation because of a lot of destruction. When destruction happens in an area, that area will become stagnant, and every business in that area will become stagnant, and there will be hard environment. So, therefore, preparedness to this solution is very paramount. Let us look at disaster and the type of disasters we have. In viewing disaster, emergency is seen as a quick intervention in the disaster or as management of resources and capital. And let us look at the types of disaster we have. We have generally two main types of disaster. One, we have natural disaster, and we have man-made disaster. If you have to view it critically, on natural disaster, these are naturally excusing physical phenomenon caused by a rapid or slow onset of events. Natural disaster can be classified into the followings. Among the followings at which natural disaster can be classified are: 1. Geographical disaster. In geographical disaster, this is disaster or destruction that occur in an area, a specific area. Example of this disaster is like earthquake. When there's earthquake or landslide, volcano, activities of tsunami, like some countries have ever experienced, and surface collapse. It has been analyzed that where there are a lot of boreholes in an area, mostly that area suffers from surface collapse. In volcano, where there is sudden collapse of an area and leading to eruption of fire or light, a lot of destruction will happen there, such as earthquake and landslide. Then number B, we have hydrological disaster. In hydrological disaster, when you hear something hydrological, it simply means destruction done due to water. That is hydrological. This type of disaster include flood. When there's flood, hurricane, large breeze on a sea leads to hurricane, tornadoes. So mostly all these destruction or emergency disaster are due to water. Then the next one is climatological disaster. Climatological disaster. This disaster under climate conditions, we have something like drought. Drought. The weather is dusty. The weather is breezy. The weather is congested to the extent that for you to even see who is coming in your front will be difficult for you. Under this condition, we call it a drought condition. Then we have another one under climatological condition we call wildfire. Fire that just of sudden erupt, burning green grasses. Not that those grasses are dry, they are green, but the fire is thick enough to engulf all those green vegetations that a lot of property, a lot of human, and a lot of animals will go through that wildfire. It has been experienced in London, and it has been experienced in US, and several countries have been experienced such a wildfire disaster. Number D, we have meteorological disaster. Meteorological disaster can be due to sudden occurrence of clone. Clone come in form of breeze, but the breeze can lift anything, like cars, like even no matter how heavy something is, clone can lift it. Then after clone, we have storm. Storm is just a thick breeze that equally destroy, like opening the roof of a house, destroying people's property. We have all those ones under meteorological disaster. Then the last one, under natural disaster, we have biological disaster. Under biological disaster, example of biological disasters are diseases, outbreak of diseases. When diseases rampage an area like we experienced sometimes ago, the what's the name of that sickness? Ebola, that many people are engulfed with that problem and many people died. It was that. They are known as biological disaster. We have another one that is epidemics. Epidemics, endemics, pandemics. Something that is localized in our area, something that is worldwide, rampage, and something that is sectional. We have them in endemics, we have them in pandemics, we have them in localized locations. And we have insects. Insects like causing of malaria, outbreak of tsetse fly, river blindness, and sleeping sickness. They are under biological disaster. We have animals like anthrax. Anthrax, when cows are infected or animals are infected, like and we've been consumed, all those ones can lead to biological disaster. And we have plague. Plague can also occur due to animals, and many people do die because of those biological disaster. Then if you have to look at man-made disaster, which is another type of disaster and emergency, we have this man-made disaster, the events that are generally taking place due to human activities and human negligence. Man-made disaster is also classified into phases. Number one is technological disaster. We have technological disaster. The main example of technological disaster is industrial accident. Industrial accident, when precautions are not taken, maybe in you putting on mask before pouring chemicals, or not taking necessary precaution before engaging yourself in operating of machine or machineries, or being drunk before going to operate a machine, which destruction happen due to industrial accident. Precaution were not taken, it will lead to industrial accident. Then we have technological disaster again under transportation. Accident that occurs under transportation, like plane crash is a disaster, road crash is a disaster, water crash is a disaster. You have ferry that can collapse, even Titanic collapse. Talk less of other little boats or ship that cannot collapse. Titanic that was said, after being built, they asked the owner of the Titanic, who constructed the Titanic, don't you think this thing can sink or be destroyed? He said, even God himself cannot destroy the ship he has created. But eventually, Titanic collapsed and it sank into the sea, and up to today, it's not been found. Then we'll talk of accident. Accident, like other accident, like bike accident, anything bad anyway, like motorcycle bike and other form of bike. We have complex conflict, terrorism attack, like what we are having in Nigeria today, attack by Boko Haram, conflict that is happening between Israel and Palestine. All these are known as complex conflict terrorism attack. So you see that area are being destroyed, and a lot of biochemical weapons will be used, destroying the area that even children unborn will suffer from, because children unborn will suffer from them because they will come and experience the weapons they have used of massive destruction, that the effect will still be on ground. Then we have nuclear weapon. In nuclear weapon, like the one they are using, Israel is using against Gaza, mostly they are nuclear weapon. And the one that Iran is equally using in the explosion on Israel, mostly they are nuclear weapon. An effect of nuclear weapon explosion is that after some years, people that are around that place are likely to come down with deformity. Even pregnancy, as at that time, Most of the children that will be born at that time will be deformed. Some will come malformed, some will be deformed, and some of them will come down with ailments in future like cancer. Most of them like leukemia. So mostly using of biochemical weapon under man-made disaster is of destructive to even generation unborn. Let us look at the second one under man-made. We have environmental disaster. Under environmental disaster, we have these are like land degradation and land dissatisfaction. So in mostly, these are the areas at which we have disaster classification. Then if we look at let us look at the phases of disaster. How many phases can disaster be classified? Disaster are classified under series of phases. One of them is mitigation, rescue phase, mitigation phase, rescue phase, we have relief phase, we have rehabilitation phase, we have the triage. If you have to look at the rescue phase, mitigation phase, mitigation phase can be as the effort to reduce the loss of life and property in the event of disaster by lessening the impact of disasters. It means taking action now before the next disaster reduces human and financial consequences. Under mitigation, mitigation simply means when they are anticipating a disaster to occur, the precaution you put in place for that disaster to occur, because you have gained experience from disasters that have previously occurred. Now you are about to experience that type of disaster, or another disaster is looming. For you now to take precaution against that disaster not to happen, we call that phase a mitigation phase. The phase at which you put on unnecessary measure to prevent the occurrence of disaster and emergency is known as mitigation phase. Then rescue phase, which is the second phase. The rescue phase, this is the phase of response, phase which commences with search and rescue of victim. When there's an explosion somewhere, or where there's bomb blast and buildings collapse, the next action that will be taken under emergency disaster care is rescue phase. In rescue phase, this is the area where those people that are well trained will come in to start combing the area. Who are those under the rubble? Those under the rubble will be rescued, some rescued alive, some dead. So under the rescue phase, the operation involves taking people out of affected area, treatment of those who are hurt, and transportation of those who are hurt, and transportation of those who are severely injured to the appropriate health facilities. There are various rescue respondents at national, state, which comes to action as soon as disaster strike. So the moment disaster strike, like building collapse, like anything that collapses, then there are people under emergency rescue that are trained to rescue those individuals that are trapped under the debris. The third one is known as relief phase. Relief phase, this is a coordinated multi-agency response to reduce the impact of disaster and its long-term result. Relief activities include relocation of victims, provision of food, provision of water, provision of temporary shelter, provision of transportation, provision of emergency health care, and prevention of disease and disability. When we say relief, it is just after a war. Then the next phase after a war, this next phase is known as rehabilitation phase. Things that will be destroyed have been destroyed. Now you need to rehabilitate the area to look befitting. Under this emergency and disaster management, relief there is to help those people that are injured, that are still alive, to be taken care of in a health center. And those people that are dead, they are taken to the morgue for deposit. Then, after being separated, then we have stage at which you call provision of food. Those that are rescued alive, they still need food to survive. Those people that are rescued alive, they still need water to survive. Those people that are rescued alive, they still need an area they need to stay. And those people that are already alive, they need transportation to move them from one place to the other. And those people that are alive, they still need a health facility that will take care of them to prevent, promote, and enhance their functionality. We have then another phase is preventing of diseases. If you allow them to continue to stay in the environment where the disaster and emergency has occurred, source of water has been polluted, the environment has been polluted, inhalation of atmospheric air is polluted, a lot of things there are polluted. For them to keep remaining there, then there will be spread of diseases. Therefore, we to prevent them from spreading of disease, we have to prevent that not to happen by cleaning the environment, by fumigating the environment, by making the environment habitable, and by making sure that those people that are there are removed from danger zone to area where they can be safe. Then the last one under relief is disability. Those people that are injured, they need to be cared for. There's a stage under disability which we call rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, those people that are injured, some of them might have lost their limb, some of them the maybe upper limb or lower limb. Then under this phase, these are the area where they need to sort them and taking care of them. Those people that have lost their limb, they need to resettle them. Maybe the person that lose limb is a driver or is a tailor. He uses limb to sew clothes or to drive. Now the limb is no longer there. We have to reintegrate them into the society by providing them other means of livelihood. So under relief. Then the last one is rehabilitation. Under the rehabilitation phase commences once emergency needs of victims and community have been met and the initial crisis is over. The immediate goal of the rehabilitation phase is to bring the affected area back to some degree of normalcy as soon as possible. Rehabilitation activities include rebuilding back the infrastructures. When there's a war, when there is destruction, when there is disaster, whatever that looms that destroy the environment after the whole destruction, the next thing, which is the last phase, is known as rehabilitation phase, where the environment will be mopped up. You mop them up, either rebuilding the infrastructure, like there will be power collapse. If there's power collapse, you need to refix back the light. If there's water collapse, maybe like dam, like the one that happened in Boronu, that is natural disaster. The dam collapse, so for them to get source of water, they have to do rehabilitation. Then mostly health centers are destroyed. They have to provide a mobile health center in which those people that are injured can be cared for. And then other basic necessity, like giving them water, giving another source of potable water, where tankers will supply them water, and source of defecation, public toilets will be constructed for those people that are inhabitable to go and make use of themselves, and other things that will make the life more easier for them. This time for that area, the economic situation there will be difficult. To provide them way of making back money again. Their market system will be instituted back again for them to be able to take care of themselves and their family, and dependent on government will be minimal. With this, I will want to stop with this lecture so that by the special grace of God, next time we'll be able to continue on the situation of disaster and management in nursing. I wish you all the best of luck. I will indulge all of you to be on the same page, and for us to be on the same page to continue. Since we have accepted that we are coming to study on a post-basic ground, we should learn how to, as a matter of urgency, pay our school fees. The coordinator has been hammering on school fees. Most of you are not online now to even listen to this lecture. And lecture has started, and lecture is going on. So I wish all of you the best of luck. Ensure you pay your school fees. Ensure you pay your clinical posting. I wish you all the best of luck. We meet again next week. Special grace of God. Best of luck and have a nice day.